will start with Article II, the general budget funds. Shall the Guilford School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $24,274,607. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $24,420,634, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Guilford School District or by law, or the governing body may hold, well, that doesn't read right, or I didn't read it right, I'm sorry. With certain adjustments required by previous action of the Guilford School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Please note this warrant article, the operating budget, does not include appropriations in any other warrant article, and a majority vote will be required. Is there a motion to move the Article 2?
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 2 as you've read.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that, Mr. Moderator.
As we can see that the school board recommends Article 2 and has been recommended by the Budget Committee. Dick, do you have anything to comment on as far as Article 2 is concerned?
No, I think it's important to see the vote number, and that's there, and there really isn't much of anything else to say.
Okay. Anybody from the school board wish to comment on Article 2? Okay. Then the floor is open for any members of the public who wish to comment on Article 2. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Barbara Eichinger, 558 Edgewater Drive. I would like to propose an amendment to Article 2 to change the operating budget to $21,847,147, which is a 10% decrease in this budget. And I would do so on behalf of the taxpayers here in the town of Guilford who are undergoing a complete financial strain. These are unprecedented times, and I would really sincerely like to ask the people of the town of Guilford, especially the school board, to really reach into your heart and understand that we need to have a tax break here. The school board clearly has control of this budget. It is the largest line item in the town tax rate, and we really sincerely need some help here, fellows.
Okay,
and I really hope that you can help us out here.
I'll certainly give you an opportunity to talk on it if it gets seconded, but I need to have it in writing. And I'm just going to repeat this quickly, and then I'm going to ask whether or not there's a second for this motion for an amendment to Article 2. The motion is to change the operating budget from that proposed in Article 2, which is $24,274,607 to $21,847,147. As was pointed out, that's a 10% increase from what's being proposed.
It's a decrease, 10% decrease.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
It's a 10% decrease, sir.
It's a 10% decrease. Is there a second for this amendment?
I will second it.
There is a second. Okay. Now, would you care to explain anything further relative to your motion?
No, I think I said it all. We're really looking for the school board to help the taxpayers out this year in our very difficult times. And as I mentioned, the town has tried their best to reduce their budget, and the taxpayers and the citizens here, we are reaching out to the school board and to the people of Guilford and asking for this type of tax relief. Thank you.
Very good. Please.
My name is Skip Murphy, Guilford Glen Road. I certainly would agree with the motion. I certainly did this as a member of the Budget Committee at the last meeting, where I did try to reduce the budget. I am one of the Budget Committee members who voted not to recommend this budget, and for the same reasons that Barbara just enumerated. I think it was too high. I think more could have been done to cut the budget, especially in this time, as was pointed out, of economic distress across the country. I've been accused of having an agenda in the past, and that agenda has been but one thing, and I've always been very public about it. That I believe that government expenditure should never rise faster or greater than that of the average family's income, which is oftentimes correlated with the rate of inflation. This year, the rise in the school budget is approximately 3.5% outside of the Warren articles. So that's approximately 3 times faster than the average family income, if indeed a family has received a rise in their income, where many people are not. Even during the Budget Committee meetings, we talked about that so many families were in distress, and yet the Budget has risen here. So I speak in favor of that, and I hope the voters would accept this amendment. And point of order, I would like to submit 5 signatures to have a paper ballot done on this amendment.
Does anyone else care to address the amendment to Article II? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Joanne McNulty. I live in Dunstock Hill Road in Guilford. And I'd like to speak to the amendment, and I think it's a good idea to reduce it. I think it will knock about $50 off my taxes. It would be a good idea. I know that I served 2 terms elected on the Budget Committee, and I sympathize with Mr. Murphy because I remember being outvoted innumerable times when I was trying to reduce the amount of the taxes. I think it's a frustrating experience, to say the least. That I know many people who are very frustrated with their taxes and who are looking for any kind of relief that they can get. And I have felt for years that we have been spending way too much on way too many things. I remember seeing Merrill Fay here pleading every year with the Budget Committee to be sympathetic, be understanding, be conservative. And year after year after year, he stands and becomes beaten down by the Budget Committees and the school district's total unsympathy toward those people who need this kind of relief. And I do hope the people in the audience will vote to reduce the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the amendment?
Richard Nelson, 41 Sprucewood Drive. I think that the amendment is totally irresponsible. A 10% arbitrarily is 10% decrease of budget. I am curious as to Mr. Murphy's comment that the budget is 3.5% over last year. According to the figures printed in the article, it's actually less than last year's. So I'm opposed, and I hope that people in the auditorium will join me in voting down this.
I just might correct that. The budget is up 3.5% from last year, about $800,000. The default budget has a rigmarole that goes through, so that is not exactly last year's budget.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Terry Stewart, Crosslane. I just want to remind the committee that Mr. Murphy's number is actually a little bit light. If you look at the actual recurring cost of education, it's actually almost 4.5% up, at least 4% up, because in the budget number is the building of the SAU office, which exceeded budget and totaled $150,000. I don't believe we're going to rebuild the SAU, and so that number should actually be deducted to come up with what I say is about 4.5%.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, my name is Paul Buckley. I live at Given Drive. As far as cutting 10% out of the budget, we're watching our fuel prices go up for home heating oil, for gasoline. We're watching our medical costs going up for insurance and for doctors and hospitals. I'm just wondering if we deduct 10% out of the budget, how we're going to make up that shortfall with these prices going up, and then we're taking 10% out of the budget. How many teachers, how many aid are we going to have to cut out of the budget? We're going to have to do away with school sports. What would we have to do to make that work? I just don't see just arbitrarily taking 10% out of the budget as being responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
David Horvath, Timber Lane, Guilford. I'd just like to make a couple comments relative to our student population and then also some of the dollars. 13 years ago, our student population was at 1,561 students. Next year, as presented by our school staff here, they're projected to have 1,228 students. That's 333 students less than we had 13 years ago. And it's 150 students less than 5 years ago. Just using a different way to measure the dollars and cents. We're talking, Mr. Hickok, I believe, said 3.2% budget increase, something to that effect. Well, there's another way to measure that. If you look at our student population last year, with 1,261 students, with the budget that we had, that came to a cost of $18,635 per student. Next year, projected, going down to 1,228 students, that cost will be $19,768 per student. That's a 7% increase if you measure it that way. Costs are going up per student. Student population is going down. As other people have stated, individual taxpayers' costs are escalating astronomically. We need relief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leo Samuelson, Hawthorne Way. I'm going to speak because I have at least 3 hats to represent. One is a father or grandfather, kids who have gone here, and kids who are in school districts in different places, but looking for a good education. 2 is a former school board member for 9 years. I saw how difficult it is to hire good people, raise the money, and finding good teachers and good administrators. So I've lived through that. And number 3, one of the things that I do now is I'm the chair for Central New Hampshire for interviewing candidates for Tufts University, where I went. And this year we have 70 candidates from Concord to Plymouth to Kearsarge in New London and to Wolfboro. We're competing against St. Paul's New Hampton, Holderness, Tilton School, Rooster Academy. And this year we have 15,000 applicants, and we're going to accept 1,500 students. Our students have to...
Sir, I wonder if you could take that phone call outside of the auditorium? Thank you, sir.
Our students have to compete with very, very bright students from very school districts that support their school systems to the hilt. Guilford has stood up pretty well. We've had several over the past 10 years that have been accepted to some excellent schools. Everybody realizes that today the amount of education, the quality of education is very important to all of our students. And if anything, if I were still in the school board, I'd be advocating for maybe more funding to improve excellence. And so cutting back an arbitrary number of 10% doesn't make any sense to me at all. So no way I could support that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Richard Campbell, Wilmette Mountain Road. I just want to point out that according to this, the Budget Committee recommended this budget by a vote of 9-3. I don't think the Budget Committee is a bunch of wild-eyed liberals.
Thank you.
To add on to what the last gentleman just said, the Budget Committee went through the school budget with a fine-tooth comb and looked at every item on the school budget. And to make an arbitrary 10% cut would be an extremely bad idea, because we would end up having to cut programs and cut personnel. A lot of the increase in the school budget this year was because of factors beyond the school district's control, health insurance, things like that. Another important consideration is that, yes, we have a 3.5% increase this year, but last year the budget was flat, and the year before that it came in under the previous year. So we're up this year, but 2 previous years we were down, and we strive very hard to come in with as responsible budget as we can, keeping in mind the primary responsibility is ensure a quality education for the children of Guilford at an affordable cost for the citizens of Guilford and taxpayers, and I believe this budget, as it currently stands, meets that criteria.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please.
Eichinger again. With all due respect to the school board, the figures that Mr. Horvath gave us at $19,768 per student is well above the state average of spending per students. And if I'm not mistaken, your test scores are at average and maybe even below average. I mean, the other school districts here in the state of New Hampshire have managed to produce excellent students with higher test scores at a lower cost per student. So you seem like a very intelligent bunch of individuals. I am sure that you could manage with a reduced budget. I mean, the other schools in the state of New Hampshire have been able to do this. I mean, I would be willing to donate my time to help you to understand where you could be more efficient and how to match the cost per student of the other school systems here in the state, and and increase your test scores. I mean, I have a bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering. I'm a product of the public schools. I'm very much a supporter of the public schools. But at, you know, $18,000 to $19,000, per student, you clearly have lost your way. And I believe this amendment is a good amendment. Thank you.
Ma'am, for the information of those present, do you happen to know what the average is in the state of New Hampshire, and do you also happen to know where Guilford fits in insofar as other school districts that may be higher or lower?
Well, I believe the average is around 12,000, okay? And the last time I looked at your test scores, as far as the D was, I believe you fell at or below average. But by all means, correct me if I'm wrong.
David Horvath, Timberlake again. Just a point of clarification, the neighborhood where the 12,000 number, state of New Hampshire's, I believe is accurate per the information I have. National average is around 10,000 per student for the information that I have, which puts us about double the national average. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that just because you're spending a certain amount of money on a student doesn't mean that they're going to do well on a test.
That's right.
Because a student needs to live up to their end of the bargain and do actually try their part. Thank you.
Thank you.
You ready to vote on this amendment? I'm going to suspend this deliberation portion, and are the volunteers with the checklists, are they ready to go with the voting currently? Here's what we're going to do. Once I declare the polls to be open, please come to the front of the auditorium. We've got two aisles. The left-hand aisle, my left-hand aisle, your right-hand aisle is for people whose last name begins with A through L. The other aisle for folks whose last name begins with M through Z. And so please come to the front of the auditorium and form lines. If there are any seasoned voters here with us that might enjoy being at the front of the line, please give them the opportunity to do so. Once I declare the polls to be open, please proceed to the tables provided, mark your ballot, and take the marked ballot, put it in the box nearest to the center exit. We are going to mark our ballots with a yes or a no. Only one or the other, please, no other marks or indicators. When voting on the ballot issue, the polls will remain open for 3 minutes after it appears that everybody has voted, and then I will declare the polls to be closed, and we will continue with our meeting while